We'll now proceed with the 2021 Annual General Meeting of the Canadian Internet Registration Authority, and I will outline a few procedural matters. The formal business of the AGM includes highlights from CIRA's audited financials delivered by the Chair of the Finance, Audit, Investment and Risk Management Committee, Crystal Nett, the motion to appoint CIRA's auditors, and other business related to member motions submitted by Alex Barascal. There will be a general Q&A period for members after the appointment of the auditor and prior to the other business of the member motions. Members received a reminder email yesterday and earlier today with links to materials posted on the Canadians Connected website. I encourage you to review these materials if you haven't already. They include today's agenda, minutes from the last AGM, CIRA's audited financials and report to members, the member motions, and CIRA Board's response to these. There is also an AGM Code of Conduct and a procedural guide. We are dealing with a very full agenda this year. We want to adhere to the very best practices in governance for our members, so we invited Dr. Richard LeBlanc, a leading Canadian governance expert, to advise us during this meeting. As a membership-based organization, only eligible CIRA members may move or second a motion, ask questions, provide comments, and vote. As per CIRA's bylaws and the Canada Not-for-Profit Corporations Act, in order to vote in this AGM, you must have been a CIRA member 21 days prior to today's AGM, namely September 2nd, and you must continue to be a member as of today. I'd like to quickly go over some procedural matters. When a motion is presented, members will be asked to move or second a motion. Simply click on the I move or I second button that will appear on your screen. The first eligible member to click will be recorded as having moved or seconded a motion. In the case of the member motions, members will only need to second the motions. The proposing member will be recorded as having the motions. There will be an opportunity for eligible members to ask questions and provide comments for each of the motions presented. And members can view and type in questions to be read aloud using the question tool in the webcast platform. Questions can also be upvoted and will be addressed in the order of the highest number of votes. Simply click on the question option in the top menu to open the question tool. Please note that during the motions, questions are limited to the motion being presented. Members are limited to one question each to allow time for the other members to participate. Please type questions short and concise, no more than 240 characters. Responses to questions will be limited to 2 minutes. Members who wish to provide a comment to a motion or a general procedure demand, such as objections or points of procedure, must use the call-in function by calling 1-888-886-7786. We've also shared this information in the chat. You'll see it on the screen at the time. Please keep your comments short and concise. They'll be limited to 1 minute. And to call in, please remember to have your member ID ready for authentication. Your member ID can be found in your CIRA member profile by signing in on the member website at member.cira.ca. French language profiles are also found at membre.acei.ca. Please ensure that all questions and comments adhere to the AGM Code of Conduct. We'll be adhering to the time limits I've set out, given the number of items of business we have to get through today. To the extent we don't get to your question, CIRA staff will follow up with you. Eligible members will be asked to vote during these proceedings. When a vote is called, you will see the motion appear on your screen. Simply click on your selection and confirm it, and your vote will automatically be registered. Members will have 2 minutes to submit their vote, and you'll see a 2-minute countdown. So that everyone is familiar with this process ahead of an actual vote, we'll run a quick demo vote for everyone's benefit. So please start the test vote, and if you have any problems, please use the help button on your screen. I will now call to order the annual general meeting. In accordance with our bylaws, Brigitte Leblanc-Lapointe will act as secretary and I will act as chair. Brigitte, how many members are present?
One moment, please. There are 202 members present.
Thank you, Brigitte. With that, I declare the meeting duly constituted and we'll now proceed with the business at hand. Today's agenda was posted on the CIRA AGM website on August 19th. Unless there are objections in the next 2 minutes, we will proceed with the agenda as distributed. The operator will signal if there's any objections, but as a reminder, you will have an opportunity to participate in a general Q&A session once we finish the annual business of the meeting. I'm hearing nothing from the operator. I think we can now proceed with the verification of the 2020 AGM minutes. Once again, you can comment by calling in. A copy of the minutes of the 2020 annual general meeting was made available to all members through the AGM website on August 19th. And if there are no objections, I will verify the minutes as correct. Once again, you can comment by calling in 1-888-886-7786. Operator, please tell me if there's any objections.
Currently, no objections.
The minutes stand as verified. I'd like to now ask Crystal Nett, Chair of CIRA's Finance, Audit, Investment and Risk Management Committee, to present the highlights of the auditor's report and financial statements for the fiscal year which ended March 31st, 2021. Crystal.
Good afternoon. My name is Crystal Nett, and I am the Chair of CIRA's Finance, Audit, Investment and Risk Management Committee, which I will refer to today simply as the FAIR Committee. Our job is to assist the board in fulfilling its oversight responsibilities for CIRA's financial reporting, audit, investment, and risk management processes. To put it more concretely, we ensure that CIRA's budgets and financial activities are aligned with the organization's objectives, that risks are noted and managed, and that the organization has the financial resources to achieve its goals. As part of our mandate, the FAIR Committee reviews the financial performance of CIRA on a quarterly basis. We also review CIRA's proposed annual audit plan, the performance and services provided by the external auditor, the resultant audited financial statements, the independent auditor's report, and the audit findings report and management letter if any exist. Today I'm here to talk with you about the financial statements. A full copy of the fiscal year 2021 audited financial statements and the independent auditor's report can be found on our website at cira.ca/financials. I am happy to report that we have once again received a clean bill of financial health. Our external auditors at KPMG are of the opinion that our financial statements present fairly in all material respects CIRA's financial position, operational results, and changes in net assets and cash flows. This audit was completed in accordance with the accounting standards of a not-for-profit organization. And as mentioned, I'm very pleased to report that a clean audit opinion was received from the auditors. To keep my presentation brief, I'll speak only to some of the key financial and operational aspects of CIRA's business, but I encourage you to take a full look through the documents online. Here are what we see as three major highlights from CIRA's past fiscal year. First, CIRA remains in a strong financial position. We have a healthy balance sheet with approximately $43.6 million in total assets, of which $32.7 million is held within our restricted investments portfolio. Our investments are managed by Phillips Hager & North with oversight from the FAIR Committee. The CIRA investment portfolio finished the fiscal year with a return of 13.4% last year, which was ahead of its benchmark by approximately 1%. Importantly, the portfolio has recovered all of the COVID-induced losses from February and March of 2020. Second, our core.ca domain business experienced a record-breaking year in fiscal year 2021, driven by a changing external environment and supported by the second year of a mass and digital advertising campaign. While most sectors of the Canadian economy experienced a severe downturn in fiscal year 2021, the domain industry experienced accelerated growth for the first time in years. While the growth was primarily driven by existing brick-and-mortar businesses having to pivot online in order to generate revenue, as we just heard from our guest speakers, while restrictions and periodic lockdowns all but eliminated any sort of physical sales. The domain business in fiscal year 2021 experienced a growth rate of 8.3%, its largest growth rate year over year since 2013. We ended the fiscal year with a total of 3.1 million domains under management, an absolute increase of approximately 239,000 domains over the closing balance from the prior fiscal year. It's important to remember, however, that part of this growth was spurred on by the pandemic, an unprecedented and highly unusual event. As the country and its economy begins to transition out of the pandemic and return to some sort of new normal, we anticipate that demand for domains will begin to soften from this peak. We've already begun to see this over the first quarter of fiscal year 2022, both with .ca and other country code top-level domains or CCTLDs. Whether growth returns to a lower pre-pandemic fiscal year 20 environment or settles somewhere between pre and during pandemic levels remains to be seen. Third, our strategy to invest and diversify services is gaining further traction. Our DNS, registry, and cybersecurity revenues grew over 80% over the last year, up from 1.9 million, and we ended the past fiscal year with over $3.4 million in revenues. This is a tremendous accomplishment for an organization transitioning from being a single service company to a multi-product entity servicing both domestic and international markets. As we continue with our 5-year strategic plan, our focus will continue to be optimizing our financial goals and key performance indicators across all of our programs, services, and activities. We also aim to improve cost recovery across all of our activities. We will focus on optimizing costs across our .ca, cybersecurity, DNS, and registry services, as well as across our non-revenue generating activities, which include CIRA's Community Investment Program initiatives. This will help constrain and focus expenditures across the entire organization to ensure that CIRA's revenue sources are diverse and stable. This will be essential to the long-term prosperity of the organization and our ability to promote a trusted internet for Canadians. CIRA has been quite fortunate to have weathered the initial financial impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, and our staff have been able to stay focused and productive in a work-from-home environment. Although the longer-term impacts of the pandemic are unknown, CIRA is flexible and well-positioned to respond to this uncertainty. I'm pleased to have offered you this high-level overview, aware that it only begins to scratch the surface, and I invite you to review our full audited financial statements, again, as mentioned, presented online at cira.ca/financials. And of course, we are more than happy to answer any questions you might have with respect to the financial statements in our question period at the end. Lastly, I would like to speak to the appointment of the auditors. The Audit Committee completed an extensive request for proposal process to select CIRA's external auditors. Several firms were invited to respond to the RFP, and 3 firms were invited to deliver a presentation to the committee, which concluded with the committee selecting Welsh LLP as the recommended firm. Welsh LLP has agreed to serve as CIRA's auditors until the next annual general meeting. I will now pass it back to our chair, Helen McDonald, momentarily for the appointment of CIRA's auditor by our members. That's it for me. Thank you for your attention and for joining us virtually at this year's event. And now over to Helen.
Thank you, Crystal. We will now be presenting a motion for the appointment of CIRA's auditor. Before we do, Brigitte, how many members are present?
One moment, please. There are 189 members present.
Thank you, Brigitte. As Crystal Nett has explained, Welsh LLP has agreed to serve as CIRA's auditor until the next annual general meeting. Before I invite questions or discussion, may I please have a member move the motion to appoint Welch LLP as CIRA's auditor? A member may move the motion by clicking on the I move on your screen.
Matthew Gamble is recorded as having moved the motion to appoint Welch LLP as CIRA's auditor.
Thank you, Brigitte. Will a member please second the motion? A member may second the motion by clicking on the I second button on your screen.
Patrick Audley is recorded as having seconded the motion to appoint Welch LLP as CIRA's auditor.
Thank you, Brigitte. Now to questions. Members are limited to one question each to allow time for other members to participate. Please keep typed questions short and concise and only related to this motion. Responses to the questions will be limited to 2 minutes. We've allocated a total of 7 minutes for this question period, and Brigitte will alert us when we reach our time limit. Do members have any specific questions with respect to the appointment of Welch LLP as CIRA's auditor?
There are currently no questions.
I hear there are no questions. Thank you.
There is one question that just came in. And
Thank you.
The question is, KPMG has experience with CIRA's audit. Was KPMG one of the 3 finalists?
Crystal, please.
I can confirm that KPMG was one of the final 3 accounting firms that the committee interviewed, and ultimately we chose Welch LLP.
There's a second question. Which companies have audited in the past 3 years or so?
KPMG has been CIRA's auditors for the last 3 years and prior to that.
And one last question. Do we need to approve last year's audits?
From the perspective that the financial statements have come forward to the annual general meeting, those audits have been approved by the board, and the members are being presented with the audit results and the financial statements today. I'll turn it back to Brigitte to determine if there's anything else that should be added for clarification.
No, that's correct. The members receive the audited financials and are not asked to approve them.
There's another question that came in. The question is, what was the reason KPMG didn't get selected this year?
The audit committee had a number of criteria, and the process by which we conducted the RFP was followed all of standard procurement processes. During the course of the review, the several committee members were involved in the scoring, and ultimately Welch received the highest score amongst all of the audit firms who submitted proposals for the audit services.
There are no longer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's now proceed with comments from members. Members who wish to provide a comment must call 1-888-886-7786. Please keep your comments short and concise and only related to this motion. You will be limited to 1 minute. Please be sure to have your member ID ready for authentication.
The conference is
We've
now being
allocated a
recorded.
total of 7 minutes for comments, and Brigitte will alert us when we reach the time limit. Operator, are there any members on the line who have specific comments about this motion? Members, sorry for that technical difficulty. I understand from the operator that there have been no comments on the motion. So I'm going to thank you and say that concludes the comment period, and we will now proceed to voting on the motion as set out on the screen. You'll see the motion appear on your screen. Simply click on your selection, submit and confirm, and your vote will be automatically registered. I've been told that if your vote does not show, please press the orange button. Please vote now.
(133) members voted yes, 3 voted no, and 8 abstained. Therefore, a majority of the members voted yes.
The motion is carried. Welsh LLP will serve as CIRA's auditor until the next annual general meeting. We will now proceed with general questions from members. Members are limited to 1 question each to allow time for other members to participate. Please keep typed questions short and concise, 240 characters, and related to CIRA's business. Responses to questions will be limited to 2 minutes. We've allocated 20 minutes for this general question period. Brigitte will alert us when we have reached our time period.
There are currently no questions, so we'll wait a bit. Thank you.
Thank you, operator.
There's a first question that came in, and it is, what services are provided to international clients?
Byron, could I ask you to answer that question?
Could you please repeat the question?
Yes, the question is, what services are provided to international clients?
Thank you. Primarily two services, DNS Anycast services, as well as registry services. So registry services are essentially like .ca, and we provide the technology backend service to other countries and other GTLDs similar to that which we provide for ourselves, .ca. Those are the primary services that we provide to international customers.
A second question is, what do you see as the future of CIRA? Is it .ca as most important, or can something become more important and critical to Canada?
Thank you for that question. Byron, can I ask you to answer that as well?
Well, that's certainly a great question, and it's one that senior management and the board talk about and wrestle with regularly. But I think .ca is always job number one. That is the core mission. Now, that doesn't mean we can't do other things. We can walk and chew gum. We've built great infrastructure, and we have top technology talent, and that allows us to leverage the infrastructure that we have for .ca to do other things, and then learn and benefit from other things to make .ca even better. Thank you.
Next question, please.
How does CIRA Canadian Shield work, and what powers the security of this service? How can we trust it?
Great question. Byron, please.
And I'm going to ask Mark Godet, who's the general manager of those services, to speak about that. Mark.
Thanks, Byron. So Canadian Shield is a DNS security product. So it's an open DNS resolver, which you can configure devices or your home router to send traffic to. We look at the DNS queries and allow or block them. We use technology that we partner with Akamai. They're a large security company and CDN provider. Their threat feed blocks access to known infected sites, phishing sites, as well as disables botnets. We have a published privacy policy, which was audited by Deloitte to ensure that we follow our privacy policy. So we don't keep the data, use it commercially, and keep the privacy protected. So that's basically the premise of the services, privacy and protection. Thanks.
I'll answer the next question.
Thank you, Mark. Next question.
What is the status of any current legal actions facing CIRA?
Can I ask Albert Chang to answer that, please, our legal counsel?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. My name is Albert. I'm legal counsel with CIRA. I've been at CIRA for a little over 14 years now. I can confirm that a former board director, Alex Barasco, has commenced a legal proceeding against CIRA, which continues today. In it, he is asking the court to appoint him as a director, arising from issues he has raised in relation to the 2019 election. This, despite the fact that he ran for the board in 2020 and was not elected by the members. As this matter is currently before the courts, I cannot provide further details about the legal proceeding other than to say that CIRA believes it is completely without merit, and we are vigorously defending it. Thank you.
Thank you, Albert. Next question, please.
With regards to financial statement, why salary increased by $2 million, a 15.5% increase?
Byron, can I ask you to answer that question?
Sure. There are a number of factors that generated the increase. We took on some headcount of approximately 7 people. And then there were standard or regular salary increases consistent with cost of living. Generally speaking, we allocate approximately 2 to 2.5% cost of living increases against or on behalf of all of our employees. So roughly between those two elements makes up the majority increase in salaries.
Thank you. Next question.
The board election starts today. Is the new board not supposed to take over the business at the AGM after they are confirmed by the members?
Can I ask Albert to answer that question as well?
That's correct. Thank you for the question, Helen. So pursuant to our bylaws, after the election and the new members are voted in, the new board starts 30 days after the election. Thank you.
Thank you, Albert. Members, we apparently had two glitches. One, you were unable to hear Sunita responding to one of the questions, and secondly, we cut the question period short. So first, let's hear from Sunita, and then go back to the general Q&A. So Sunita, the question was, how do you describe employee engagement during the pandemic?
Thanks for the question. We take employee engagement and culture very seriously at CIRA, but we haven't been immune to the pandemic. With that said, we make sure that we're really intentional about collecting feedback from our employees and that we continuously adapt. And so I'm proud to say that employee engagement remains quite strong at CIRA.
Thank you, Sunita. Members, I encourage you to proceed with any general questions you might have.
I have a next question. What do you see as the biggest success for CIRA over the past year?
Well, that's a great question. Byron, please.
Thank you. Well, I think the biggest success without a doubt is .ca itself. We had an all-time year in terms of new .ca domain name registrations. And that was in the face of what over the last number of years has been a generally slowing growth, maturing domain name industry in general, of which, of course, we were not immune. I mean, the good news is we'd outperformed the averages, but nevertheless, domain name growth has been slowing. And over the past year, we had just an incredible year in .ca and got so many more Canadians onto the internet with .ca domain names. So that, for sure, I think is the number one achievement during the course of the new normal pandemic year. Thank you.
Thank you, Byron. Other questions, please.
Yes. How does CIRA Firewall compare to Windows Firewall?
Could I ask Byron again?
Yes, and I'm going to bring Mark back to speak to that question.
Thanks, Byron, and thanks for the question. So one of the things with our DNS firewall and Canadian Shield is that we promote defense in depth, so layers of defense. And DNS firewall and Canadian Shield aren't intended to replace Windows firewall. Windows firewall is more at the device level. What we're looking at is more at the network level. So we're looking at DNS queries and using a threat feed from Akamai, which is based on global DNS traffic. So they quickly identify new domains seen globally and add them to a block list. So we're blocking at the network level DNS access to phishing and known malicious sites. So it complements, I would say it complements Windows firewall as opposed to, being compared to it or competing with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Next question, please.
Yes, DNS abuse and malware seems to be ever-growing issue. What is CIRA doing about this?
Sounds like security is a big interest. Byron, please.
I'm going to go back to Mark on this one. Mark.
Yeah, I guess so. Canadian Shield is one of the key things we are doing to address abuse and provide protection. So it addresses a couple of key areas. It's a service that will block access to phishing sites, as well disables botnets, which could be operating on a device, and blocks access to known infected sites.
Thank you, Mark. Next question.
Could you explain the free DNS capability for CIRA members?
I'm going to say Mark again.
Sure, I'll jump in again. So the free service is called Canadian Shield, and it's available to members. It's available to anyone in Canada, and that is a service that you can configure. Our recommendation is that you configure your home internet router to point their DNS queries to Canadian Shield, and there's 3 levels of service for it. So the first service is private, where we don't block anything. We keep your sensitive DNS data private. The second service is called protected, where that's the one I referenced before that uses Akamai's global DNS security feed, so blocks access to phishing sites, malware, and disables botnets. And then the third one is a family service, and that one adds blocking of adult content in addition to the malware protection. And that's available to anyone in Canada. And at this point, we have almost 250,000 users on the service and growing.
Thank you, Mark. I think Byron might want to weigh in on this. Byron, please.
Thanks, Mark. Given the questions, there's seeming interest here, Mark, could you provide some context in terms of the performance of our firewall service as well as Canadian Shield service, and give our members and the other folks here today a sense of the numbers and the metrics behind it? Who are we protecting? How many? The blocks that we're doing on a daily basis, just to give people a sense of what's actually happening.
Yeah, it's a great question. So on our DNS firewall, we're protecting almost 3 million users, and a large chunk of that is in higher education. So there's 1.4 million students and staff at Canadian universities, colleges, and CEGEPs that are protected. And across those 3 million users, we'll see roughly 300 million DNS queries a day and block upwards of 2 million queries. And just checking, today there was roughly 1 million blocks associated with known infected sites, around 400,000 for phishing sites, and then another 250,000 associated with botnets. So we're seeing a really high level of, of threats out there that are being blocked at the DNS level by our service.
Thank you, Mark. Next question, please.
Yes. How is CIRA responding to alternate DNS systems? DNS over HTTPS, DNS over TLS, and even blockchain-based domain resolution?
I'm guessing this is another question or set of questions for Mark. Mark Godet, please.
Sure, thanks. So DNS over HTTPS is a way to encrypt DNS queries. So right now, DNS queries are in plain text and unencrypted. DNS over HTTPS is a technology that encrypts those queries in flight. And the way we're approaching that is all of our services support DNS over HTTPS. And one of the key partnerships we announced recently was with Mozilla. So in Canada, they're in the process of upgrading Firefox browsers, and all of those browsers will by default use Canadian Shield as their DNS over HTTPS provider. And we also support DNS over TLS. And no plans, there was a reference there to blockchain, still a bit out there in the future for us at this point.
Thank you, Mark. We have about 5 minutes left for more questions, please.
Yes, the next one is for Canadian Shield. How would we find out how often there are problems reports and or general customer satisfaction with new services?
Mark, sounds like you again.
Yeah, we don't. That's a good question. So Canadian Shield's been out for approximately 18 months. The service has 100% uptime as far as answering queries and responding. We do get the occasional inquiries from users about domains that are blocked. So with any service, there is a possibility that there could be a false positive. That's been pretty rare. So we might get a question once every week or 2 weeks about a particular domain, and we will review it and, if possible, resolve that really quickly, override the threat feed, or investigate the domain first to make sure it is safe.
Thank you, Mark. Next question, please.
What role can CIRA play on behalf of workers in a hybrid employment world when the disparity in access and housing is a further threat to participation in the workforce and higher education?
Great question. Can I ask Byron, please?
Good question, and a difficult question, of which CIRA really only plays a particular role in that question, not on the housing side, but certainly on the access side and hybrid worker side. We at CIRA are also in a remote and somewhat hybrid environment, so not only do we think about users in general in a hybrid world and and we're typically thinking about it through performance of internet and security of internet. But we also experience those same issues ourselves. So not only are we thinking about it, we actually live it day to day. So what we are doing, I would say, is twofold. One is providing the kind of security and protection services that you just heard about. Canadian Shield is a perfect example. It gives everyday end users industrial grade DNS firewall protection. So that's one side of it if you have to be working from home or remote. The other is on the access side, and I take that to mean like actually just good quality internet access at home. And I think we do a couple things on that front. One is we have the CIRA proprietary internet performance test, and that's really a totally unbiased total internet connection test. Not just what you'll normally see an on-net speed test, but this is your total internet connection, performance, and quality. And that is allowing end users to see if they're getting what they paid for, what their service provider said they were getting. So we help give people third party independent confirmation of their performance. The other thing is that test is really showing across the land where internet is good, and there are lots of places it is good, but where internet connection and performance is soft or substandard. And that's helping towns, cities, municipalities really get a handle on the areas in their regions where additional investment would be of high value. So I'd say really what we're doing there is providing baseline information and independent documentation of the performance of internet, and that allows policymakers, end users, and governments and ISPs to act accordingly. So those would be the two areas where I really see us acting. Thank you.
Thank you, Byron. Next question. We probably only have a minute or so left.
Yes, how is CIRA dealing with all the new legislation proposed by the federal government on internet issues?
Good question. I'm going to ask Byron and ask him to keep his answer within a 2-minute period, please.
Okay, where do you start on that? I think everybody probably at this event is deeply interested in the internet itself, and over the past year and a bit, the former and I guess new federal government again launched a flurry of activity when it came to legislation and regulatory reviews, both C10, which was really around the Broadcast Act, C11, which was an update and redo of the Privacy Act, all in the context of the internet, focus on internet. C10, we certainly have feelings on it. A lot of folks internally feel very strongly that it is, quite frankly, a little out of CIRA's bailiwick per se. C11 on the privacy side, much more so, and we have commented to government. We certainly advocate and publish an informed and independent perspective from CIRA. And then more formally, the CRTC did a consultation on network blocking, so DNS blocking. Given what you've just heard, we have considerable expertise there and also a very global view of what's happening around the world on that front. So provided some very detailed and specific inputs to the CRTC to the CRTC consultation on DNS blocking. So those are some examples of what we're doing, but we're definitely in the mix where we can provide expert, independent, unbiased input into the various activities of government and consultations. Thanks.
Thank you. I understand there's a point of, or is that right?
Not on the phone line.
Brigitte?
I had understood that there's a point of personal privilege on the line.
Not currently on the phone.
Okay, I understand there is or is not a point of personal privilege from Alex Barasco.
One moment, please, while we open his line. Alex, your line is open.
Good, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay. My point of personal privilege is that Mr. Albert Chang, the lawyer for CIRA, misrepresented totally the lawsuit. The lawsuit was filed in June. The 2020 election that he refers to was done in September, 4 months later than when the lawsuit was filed. That needs to be corrected, not to misrepresent my actions in any light. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barasco. Albert, do you wish to respond to that?
Sure, absolutely. I'm not sure what Mr. Barasco is referring to. His legal proceeding specifically references the 2019 election that he has issues with. And he is also, as part of his legal proceeding, asking the court to appoint him as a director. And the legal proceeding continues today, so I'm not sure what I've misrepresented. I've stated everything that's purely factual. Thank you.
Thank you. I am going to be moving on now, or propose that we all move on to the member proposal section of the meeting. And I'm first going to ask Brigitte how many members are present to ensure that we have a quorum.
We have 179 members present.
Thank you, Brigitte. All right, member proposal section of the meeting. At the outset, let me note that CIRA is committed to the multi-stakeholder model. It is the way we have operated since the founding of this organization, and it reflects the reality of the internet. This means that when CIRA makes decisions about policy, we take input from all of our stakeholders, and we strive for a community-based, driven approach. CIRA has a broad range of stakeholders. Our stakeholders include members, but also other parties such as holders and users of .ca domain names, registrars, civil society, governments, universities, school boards and hospitals, recipients of CIRA grants, the technology community, and international bodies like ICANN. The input of our members is very important to CIRA, as is the input from other stakeholder groups. We listen to many voices. It is at the heart of who we are. As CIRA's board, we have an obligation to look out for the best interests of CIRA, which includes considering that multi-stakeholder model. Member Alex Barasco has submitted 8 proposals for consideration at this year's AGM, each of which proposes a specific change to CIRA's bylaw. And as you know, that he was director on CIRA's board from 2016 to 2019, and I think you've heard about the legal proceeding that's continuing today. I'm not going to speak any further about that, other than we believe the legal proceeding is without merit, and we are vigorously defending it. The CIRA Board of Directors prepared a written response to the member motions, which was posted on CIRA's website. We do not support these member motions, and we recommend members vote against each of them. In essence, The board believes that many of these motions reflect a serious misunderstanding of the function of an organization's bylaw. Others deal with matters where CIRA has or is making changes. As an organization's bylaw sets out the broad rules for governing the corporation, think of it as a kind of constitution. And just as Canada's constitution does not set speed limit on your street, the bylaw does not delve into or prescribe the minutiae of day-to-day operations. That's the job of the organization's leadership team, who are ultimately responsible to the board of directors. That's the essence of effective and responsible corporate governance. CIRA's bylaw was prepared with the assistance of CIRA's expert external legal counsel. It is based on governance best practices. CIRA has received external advice and verification from a governance expert that its bylaw is robust and reflects best practices while giving the flexibility to address circumstances in the collective judgment of the board. We recognize that being presented with 8-member motions is unusual. We have previously advised the proposing member that CIRA's policy is to limit each member to 1-member proposal or motion to allow the AGM to proceed in an orderly fashion, giving all members a chance to fairly participate. CIRA presented a number of options to Mr. Baraskow to focus the discussion on items that are appropriate bylaw changes and expedite the proceedings of the AGM. He has refused and insisted that all 8 motions be considered. After careful consideration of all options, CIRA has complied with his request, and we are going to move forward with presenting all 8 of his motions at this AGM. We would encourage you to give us feedback after the AGM as to whether this was or was not the best use of your time as members at the meeting. Be assured the board will be considering how to ensure best practice at our meetings when it comes to many motions from 1 member. We've allocated 25 minutes for each of the motions. As a result, this portion of the meeting may take 4 hours. I will schedule breaks as needed. I will encourage all members who are interested in these member motions to stay online during the meeting. But pursuant to our bylaw and Weinberg's Society meeting rules, if we lose the quorum of 100 members during this portion of the AGM, then the meeting will end. Our corporate secretary, Brigitte Leblanc-Lapointe, will advise us if we lose quorum. I will now address the process for each of the member motions. Each will be addressed separately. We'll begin with the 3 motions that, in our view, deal with topics that are potentially legitimate topics for bylaw changes. These will be followed by those motions which address administrative or policy changes that, in our view, are not appropriate to be included in the bylaw. We have consulted with an outside expert, Dr. Richard LeBlanc, to confirm our view. I will read the motion and seek a seconder. The proposing member will be recorded to have moved his own motion. Prior to the discussion of each motion, the proposing member will have 2 minutes to present his rationale to you. A representative from the CIRA board will then have 2 minutes to provide our position on the motion. I will then open the floor to questions from members for clarification. 1 question is allowed per member. Questions must be typed. Please keep them short and concise, no more than 240 characters. Please also indicate if your question is directed at the proposing member Alex Baraskow, or CIRA, or both. The proposing member will be available to respond live online. All responses will be limited to 2 minutes. A total of 7 minutes is allocated for questions for each motion, and questions can be upvoted by members. We will then move to comments. As per Weinberg's rules, 1 comment is allowed per member. And members must call 1-888-886-7786 to provide a comment. A total of 7 minutes is allocated for comments for each motion. Please keep your comments short and concise. They'll be limited to 1 minute. The proposing member will then have 1 minute to provide a final comment. I note that members can also discuss each of the member proposals or motions with each other through the live chat. Each of these motions proposes a bylaw change, and members should be clear exactly on what the votes on these motions will mean. A yes motion does not by itself change the bylaw. Rather, it constitutes advice and recommendations to the board. According to Section 17 of CIRA's bylaw, Bylaw amendments are first made and voted on by the board and then confirmed by members. If the membership votes in favor of a change, in favor of one of these motions, it is then the fiduciary duty of the board to engage with other stakeholder groups for feedback, to direct research, and to seek expert legal opinion for each of the contemplated bylaw changes. Legal counsel would then properly draft any bylaw amendments to ensure appropriate wording. The amendments would be put to a vote of the board, and if approved, would then be brought back to the membership at the next AGM for a confirmation vote. Directors are bound by fiduciary duty to the corporation when they consider any bylaw changes. In the board's view, in considering these proposals, members are not voting on whether the proposed wording should be incorporated into CIRA's bylaw. Rather, you are signaling whether you support CIRA taking further action to implement the ideas behind each of these motions, either through changes in CIRA's bylaw or in CIRA's policies. As noted in the AGM materials, we'll be discussing the member motions in the following order. First, we'll be discussing member motions 3, 7, and 5. We'll then discuss member motion 4 and take a short break. After the break, we will then discuss member motions 6, 8, 1, and then 2 in that order. So we'll now proceed to the first motion. This motion calls for the board to consider adding the following language to section 3.03 of CIRA's bylaw. We would add 3.03e. Every director must be independent of any registrar. The member submitting the proposal, Mr. Bariscow, is deemed to have moved the motion. Will a member please second the motion? You can second a motion by clicking on the I second button on your screen.
Jim Dixon is recorded as having seconded the motion.
Thank you, Brigitte. Mr. Bariscow, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
Thank you. You can hear me, I assume? Wait, can you hear me? I'm assuming you can hear me. Okay.
Yes, sorry.
I want to introduce.
We can hear you.
Yeah, okay. At outset, I want to introduce my 8 proposals by stating again that my CIRA is open, transparent, and works in public interest and not in self-interest nor self-perpetuation. CIRA offered a response to my 8 proposals on their website, and Helen McDonald just talked to them. I found 6 errors in both fact and in law. Moreover, CIRA's dismissive tone and manner of response appears to have given someone license. I received a death threat yesterday, personally against me and my family. I have filed a police report. Let me know if you want further details, as this is not a level playing field. With respect to Proposal 3, it is common governance norm that the board must be capable and independent of any undue influence from anyone who could benefit, whether it be management or registrars. Some registrars, personally or their employees, have sat on independent nominating committees and even on the board. They have influence either by propping up the status quo or by nudging it to that status quo. Some .ca domains are active, some dormant, waiting for resale. CIRA does not disclose the number of domains that registrars own. CIRA management and governance must be completely independent of any registrar, including that registrar's employees and direct family. The nomination committee process must also be completely independent of any registrar, including the registrar's employees and direct family. In an email of June 30th, CIRA agreed to this motion. I encourage you to vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bariscow. Director Don Bowman, the chair of our Service Strategy Committee, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Helen. So CIRA is committed to a multi-stakeholder model. It's the way we've operated since we started. and it reflects the reality of the internet. ICANN, which is one of the main governance areas we work with, has a lot of different stakeholders. CIRA takes its input from a lot of different stakeholders and is guided by that community, that consensus-driven approach. Registrars are a very important stakeholder, and excluding them from the board would be contrary to everything that CIRA stands for. It would also deny the board an important perspective. Registrars bring specific industry experience and institutional knowledge required by the CIRA board and CIRA. Prior to serving on the board and during the term of office, directors openly disclose any potential, real, or perceived conflicts of interest. I have done this. Every other director has done this. A director who is potentially in conflict of interest is not able to vote on a specific issue. Mr. Barraska was aware of this policy and saw it in practice. In February 2017, the board discussed and made a decision on pricing for CA domains. The director employed by a registrar abstained from voting. This is in CIRA's publicly available minutes. I believe that the members alone should control who's on the board, whether that be me or whether it be someone from a registrar. There should be no artificial restrictions. The board needs to represent the members. The members include all stakeholders. We recommend you vote against this motion. Thank you very much. Back to you, Helen.
Thank you, Don. Now to questions. Members are limited to one question each to allow time for other members to participate. And you know the drill. Please keep typed questions short and concise, 240 characters, and only related to this motion. Responses to questions will be limited to 2 minutes. We've allocated a total of 7 minutes for the question period for this motion, and Brigitte will tell us when we have reached our time limit. Do members have any specific questions with respect to this motion? Please indicate at the beginning of your typed question or somewhere in your typed question to whom you wish the question directed, either the CIRA board and or Alex Barraska.
There's a first question. Who are the registrars, the owners, or board members or employees who have previously sat on CIRA's board? What about those that are presently on? What about those running for election today?
Don, please.
Can I confer with my colleagues on that? I don't know if I know the answer offhand. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. CIRA's history is longer than my history with it. There is typically one member on the board that is from a registrar, and there are no employees serving on the board is the answer to the question. Thank you very much. If you're looking for information on specific registrars who may have served in the past, I think you'll find the list on CIRA's website of past board members. Back to you, Helen.
I think we're back to questions for you.
Yes.
Or for Alex.
Can we move to consider all 8 motions together in omnibus or similar? How would I make such a motion?
I'm going to ask if Albert can address that question, and I'm going to caution or encourage members to please keep their questions to the particular motion at play. But I'm going to allow this general. Albert?
Yeah, hi Helen. Generally it's a bad idea because each motion is separate and distinct. It would not be ideal to put them all together in one omnibus motion. If you need further clarity, you can ask Richard LeBlanc for his views, but those are my views.
Thank you, Albert. Back to the questions on this motion, please.
Yes, I believe this is a question for Mr. Baraskau. The perceived conflict of interest is addressed with the conflict of interest policy. Domain warehousing is addressed by the registrar agreement. Where has the lack of this provision caused problems in the past?
Please go ahead. Your line is open.
Okay, thank you. Excellent question. The tough part with any conflict of interest is it's defined as real and perceived. So the question really comes down to, and we've seen this case with the We Charities of the world and other situations with our beloved Prime Minister going on holidays and what have you. So the problem comes in is that if one person declares it, it doesn't take it away because the person is still sitting in the room glaring, and if you want to get him on side, you can't turn around. You can't rely on that person. Rather than having a board of 12 sagacious people who are wise, all of a sudden that person who is in conflict overtly now it just upsets the entire balance. You have less people there, and there's still direct influence and indirect influence all the way along, which I think is just very bad governance. I'm not sure why, I guess I'll address that in my comments about why, if you need the knowledge and the expertise, the board can hire anybody, any expert at any time to help and guide so that the board members, each of the 12 people, can make their own informed decision and not be guided by who is there, who's influencing, and who's not. Not good governance at any level. Thank you.
There's another question for Mr. Baraskau, where can he cite specific cases where registrar participation on the board has resulted in unfair decision? What conflict of interest is being addressed here? What real problem is being solved?
Go ahead, your line is open.
Great, thank you. I hope this isn't a trick question, because to give you specific examples, I would have to break board confidentiality, which I'm sure Albert Chang and his gang of legal folks would jump all over me. So I can't give you specific examples, but the point being still is that should you have people who are potentially beneficiaries of any decision, should they participate in the process? And again, I just want to draw the point being is that CIRA has agreed in an email of June 30th with me that this is valid. So we both can't be wrong. Thank you.
We have time for one more question. Is John Denko, the founder of .ca, impacted by the specific member motion? If so, what would happen to John's post as an observer or advisor?
Dawn, do you want to answer that question, or should I ask Albert?
I can answer that, Helen.
Thank you.
So I would note that Mr. Baraskau has a later motion specifically seeking to disenfranchise the board advisors, including Mr. Demko. John Demko, obviously a huge factor in starting CIRA out and a huge factor in the continuity, is also a registrar. And he's an advisor on the board, which means he does not vote, but his advice and presence is cherished. And he's part of one of our key rituals, which is the election of a new chair. Yes, I would read this as specifically seeking to disenfranchise any registrar, including John, because the advice given there. I would say, for the same reason as before, we have a multi-stakeholder model. We need the registrars on the board. We need people like John Demko in the ecosystem. And I don't believe that there has ever been any conflict of interest, undisclosed, voted on. I've not seen it while I've been here, and the governance is strong. I'd recommend you vote this against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Don. How are we doing on time, Brigitte?
Madam Chair, we've reached our time limit for the question period.
Thank you, Brigitte. Let us now proceed with comments from members. Members who wish to provide a comment must call 1-888-886-7786. Please keep comments short, concise, and only related to this motion. You'll be limited to one minute. Please make sure you have your member ID ready for authentication. And we have 7 minutes for the comment period on this motion. Brigitte will let us know when we reach our time limit. Operator, are there any members on the line who have comments about this motion?
Not at this time.
Operator, still no comments?
Still no comments at this time.
Thank you.
The operator will not.
Madam Chair, we do have a comment at this time.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Carrie Brown, please go ahead.
I'm a former board member. I was on the board for 9 years. During my time on the board, we experienced quite a few conflicts, and every time it was resolved to my satisfaction. A conflict would be declared. The person would leave the room and not participate in the conversation or the vote. So I don't see that this causes a problem. As long as conflicts are declared, there's no problem. Thank you.
Thank you. More comments?
Not currently.
And Brigitte, how is our time doing?
Madam Madam Chair, we still have about 4 minutes, and I'm getting messages that some folks are trying to call in currently. So I suggest that we leave this comment period open for the next 4 minutes to facilitate that participation. Just as a reminder, members need to have their member IDs at the ready.
Thank you, Brigitte. And a reminder, the member ID is found on your profile.
Madam Chair, we do have a comment at this time.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Paul Anderson, your line is open.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair. And my apologies, I failed to get my member ID apparently. My comment is just, I am a previous board member, for disclosure, not only of CIRA, but I've had extensive internet governance experience as well through my chair of the ARIN board, American Registry of Numbers, the Toronto Internet Exchange Board, and participation in a lot of other ISTA organizations. And I guess my comment would be is that there's a lot of views on internet governance. There are best practices, but I respectfully disagree with the member proponent on this, that having stakeholder input from a wide variety is important. Yes, we must make sure that there are strong conflicts of interest, but not having the knowledge that registrars, intellectual property members, community activists, and many of the other stakeholder groups that are there would be, to me, damaging to the ability for the CIRA board to do its job. I would hope that the board continue to put in very strong conflict of interest measures, and conflict of interest is something that has been dealt with on many boards. For instance,
thank you, Paul. Sorry,
about the room.
Paul,
No?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
We hit the 1 minute. I'm trying to keep to a tight timeline here.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Other comments, please?
No other comments.
And our timing is, we have a few more minutes left. Is that right, Brigitte?
That's right. We still have about 90 seconds left.
Okay. I'll wait the 90 seconds. Just as a reminder, Mr. Barrascal will be moving shortly to ask you if you have a final comment for 1 minute as soon as we reach the time limit. Brigitte, we must be almost at time. There are still no comments in on the line operator?
No other comments.
Then I'm...
Yes, and I confirm, Madam Chair, that we've reached our time limit for comments.
Thank you. Thank you both. Mr. Barrascal, do you have a final comment for 1 minute?
Go ahead. Your line is open.
Good. Thank you. I disagree totally with my good friend Don Bowman, who talked about disenfranchising board members, and especially John Demko, who is very dear to CIRA. The point of the board is its governance, and it's to provide oversight and not meddle with operations or get stuck in the weeds. Registrars, by their very definition, can benefit from sitting on the board, on the nominating committee, all the way through. When directors need to get information, they are free to consult anybody. Directors' board meetings can also be held totally open for all members to participate and see as well. So directors can get informed at any time. The prime issue here is that the people who benefit, who may own 1,000 or 10,000 domain names, may be sitting on the board, and abstaining means that they no longer, a good vote
Mr.
is
Berescal,
wasted.
Mr. Berescal, can you please wrap up?
So I did wrap up, Helen, and having been on the board and having worked together in the government for years, should know my surname is pronounced Barasco, not Barascow.
Excuse me. That concludes the comment period. You will now proceed to voting on the motion as set out on the screen. You will see the motion appear on your screen. Please click on the selection, submit and confirm, and your vote will be automatically registered. Please vote now. Brigitte, how was the vote?
Just give me one moment, please. All right, so there are 20 votes yes, 105 votes no, and 9 abstentions. So the noes outweigh the yeses.
The motion is not carried. Before proceeding to the next motion, Brigitte, how is quorum?
One moment, please. There are 164 members present.
Thank you. To the second motion. This motion calls for the board to consider adding the following language to section 6.01 of CIRA's bylaw. We would add 6.01CV. The nomination committee members must be independent of management and registrars. The member submitting the proposal, Mr. Berescal, is deemed to have moved the motion. Will a member please second the motion by clicking on the I second button on their screen?
Brett Delmage is recorded as having seconded the motion.
Thank you, Brigitte. Mr. Beresco, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
Yes, this is Alex Barasco, Helen.
I'm sorry.
Speaking to Proposal 5, is it an accepted norm in board governance that board terms be limited? Being a board member is not a sinecure, nor tenure, nor should a board member be paid for time and attendance, nor should a board director be a historian explaining away the status quo. In the campaign forum that I encourage all members to participate in, all new board candidates agree wholeheartedly, 100%, that there should be term limits. One candidate, having served 3 terms already, is making the argument to allow him to serve again after a cooling off period. Another candidate who has been on the board 3 terms already. Yes.
Alex, just checking, we are talking about the, not the term limits, right, on this motion? The motion is about the number, whether the management and registrars can be on the nominating committee. Sorry to interrupt, just wanted to check.
Sorry, so is it Proposal 7 or 5? I had put them in sequential order, but that got changed.
7. Proposal 7 for you.
Okay, sorry. If you can just pause for a second while I... Okay.
Can we pause till he gets that and restart the clock, please?
Yeah, okay. Thank you. My apologies for that. I'm messing up my papers here. As previously stated, it is a common governance norm that the board must be capable and independent of any undue influence from anyone who could benefit, especially management. The nomination committee is key in recommending a candidate to CIRA members who are qualified by vetting them, checking references, and interviewing them as well. Executive management, whether it be the CEO or his or her team, should not have any say in the election process. The board's role is to supervise the CEO and all material aspect of CIRA operations, not to interfere, but to provide oversight. Specifically, they should not be allowed to pick who does that oversight. The CEO should not taint any board members describing him or her as a rogue, for example. It starts with the nomination committee, as that is the first gate. And in an email of June 30th, CIRA agreed to this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Jill Kowalczyk, who is the vice chair of the board, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
Prior to serving on the board, I was a member of the CIRA nominating committee. This gives me a unique perspective to speak to this motion. When I first started on the nominating committee, I was surprised by the process. In all of my board experience, the nominating committee is typically a subcommittee of the board to ensure that new directors are a fit for the organization and the existing board culture. At CIRA, the nominating committee is completely independent from the board. I'd like to clearly state that the CIRA management team and staff are not part of the nominating committee and are not permitted to participate in the process. Similarly, board members are also not able to serve on the NomCom to ensure its independence. As emphasized by Helen and Dawn, CIRA is committed to the multi-stakeholder approach, and registrars are a key stakeholder group whose voice and perspective should be considered when selecting a slate of board candidates. The nominating committee contains members from a diverse set of backgrounds with extensive governance skills. In the history of the NomCom, only one member has been from a registrar. The rest come from a variety of stakeholder groups, including national non-for-profits, consulting firms, and a wide range of technology companies. The nominating committee selection process involves extensive discussion and deliberation by all committee members. Committee members disclose any and all conflicts of interest and act accordingly throughout the process. No one individual, or even a select group of individuals, can make a decision about who is put forward on the slate. The committee strives for consensus and as a result spends many hours discussing and deliberating on a wide range of qualified candidates to ensure the best slate is put forward. We recommend you vote against this motion.
Thank you. Now to questions. Same rules as last time. Members are limited to one typed question each. Please keep questions short and only related to this motion. Responses will be limited to 2 minutes. And Brigitte again will tell us when we have reached our 7-minute time limit. Please, if members have any questions about this motion, please indicate also if you want the CIRA board and or Mr. Marasco to respond.
We have a first question, which is, who are the registrars, the owners, or board members or employees who have previously sat on the CIRA nomination committee? What about those that are presently on this committee as well?
Jill, please.
Yes. At present, there is only one NomCom member who is a member of a registrar. Since the NomCom was created, there has only ever been one individual who's a member of a registrar that has participated on the NomCom. That individual is currently serving. Thank you.
The next question is for Mr. Ruskow. Can you please specifically explain when a current member of management has sat on the NomCom? I am not aware of that occurring. Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I'm not sure I understood it.
Yes, no problem. Can you please specifically explain when a current member of management has sat on the NomCom? I am not aware of what that occurrence is. Thank you.
So the real answer is I have no idea, because my video surveillance, while I only live 2 blocks away from CIRA, doesn't extend to to that part of meetings. However, appreciate that I'm sophisticated enough, and I've seen enough situations where, whether it be passing in the hall or other comments, where it is very easy to direct, to influence, to hint, to nudge. I've sat in on meetings of the board selecting members where, a raised eyebrow was enough to basically skate somebody totally offside, because people, for the most part, want to get along, to go along, and therefore just get along all the way through. So I can't give you specific cases, but my point being always is it should look clean, be clean, look clean, and pass the smell test. And the best way of doing that is not having anybody having it clearly stated, so that there's absolute clarity.
Other questions, please?
Yes, there is another question. A question for the board or CIRA managers or CIRA's legal advisors. Did the member move the motion apply to the NomCom? Was this member selected? Could this be viewed as relation against the NomCom, who did not select this individual?
Jill?
Can I confer with my colleagues to make sure I get the answer correct, please? Since the NomCom is completely independent from the board, I am not privileged to the information about whether or not the applicant did apply for the nominating committee slate. He did apply, he was on the member slate in one previous year, and I cannot speak to what the motivation of the member is.
The last question I have right now is the NomCom membership not public? Why would there be a proposal to change who can be on it if the person making that proposal doesn't know who currently is on it?
Jill, please.
The nominating committee, who is on the nominating committee is currently public information and is available on our website. Thank you.
Madam Chair, there's no more questions.
Sorry, I was on mute. We're moving on to the comment period for members. If you wish to provide a comment, you must call 1-888-886-7786. Again, please keep comments concise and only related to this motion. You'll be limited to 1 minute. Please have your member ID ready for authentication, and Brigitte will alert us when we have reached our 7-minute time limit. Operator, are there any members on the line who have specific comments?
Not at this time.
We shall wait a few minutes.
Madam Chair, at this time we do have a comment.
Please proceed.
From Paul Anderson. Please go ahead.
Okay, I think I got this figured out now. So speaking to the motion does speak about being a member of the NOMCOM, and to my knowledge, and that's why I asked the question, there's never been a member of management as part of the current management as part of the NOMCOM. And I can say, having served on the NOMCOM, that the current chair ensures that during any deliberation of candidates, there is no member of CIRA's management in the room. And as for the registrar element, I would just echo my comments on the previous motion, which I think apply here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other comments?
Not at this time.
I propose that we could wait a minute or so and see if any more comments come in. Operator, still no comments?
No, Madam Chair.
Right, Mr. Baraskow, do you have a final comment for 1 minute? If so, please proceed.
Yes, and again, Helen, this is Alex Barasco. My comments are a couple of fold. One is people must understand that the election process consists also of writing questions, scrutinizing, and a whole other series of tasks. I'm not sure who writes the questions, for example, for the nomination committee, but it is very easy to skate anybody offside. And I have seen this particularly, and you, Helen, have also seen this as well, because I drew it to your attention as chair when I was sitting on the governance committee. While much has been made about the multi-stakeholder model, the point is that if board members are to provide oversight, the dominant capability or the principle is governance insight, and having registrars, I'm not sure whether that applies or not.
Mr. Baraskow, we're running out of time. Mr. Baraskow, you're running out of time. Please close up.
Well, I've been watching the clock. Can you reset it as they do in soccer or hockey to 5 seconds?
No, sir.
Or allow
no,
me
sir.
5 seconds?
Please close your comments. One last sentence.
Yes. The final question is, Paul Anderson has come in twice. I'm not sure whether he's identified as a registrar or whether he's had his employees sitting on the board or on the nominating committee as well, for example. It is important to assure the integrity of the process.
Thank you, Mr. Baraskow. That concludes the comment period. We'll now proceed to voting on the motion as set out on the screen. You will see the motion appear on your screen. Simply click on your selection, submit and confirm, and your vote will be automatically registered. Please vote now.
There are 13 votes yes, 103 votes no, and 8 abstentions. The noes outweigh the yeses.
Thank you, Brigitte. The motion is not carried. We are now moving to member proposal number 5 for Alex. Before we move to this motion, Brigitte, how many members are present?
One moment, please. There are 159 members present.
Thank you. This motion calls for the board to consider making amendments to the term limit provision set out in section 3.06 of CIRA's bylaw. And the change would be to delete section 3.06B and 3.06C and add a new 3.06B. Each director shall serve no more than 9 years. The member submitting the proposal, Mr. Baraskow, is deemed to have moved the motion. Will a member please second the motion? Please click on the I second button on your screen.
Mike Abramczuk is recorded as having seconded the motion.
Thank you, Brigitte. I'm now a little worried about how I'm going to pronounce your name. Mr. Baraskow, you have the floor for 2 minutes, and my apologies for mispronouncing your name.
Thank you, Helen. You did get it right. So to speak to the proposal 5, it is an accepted norm in board governance that board terms be limited. Being a board member is not a sinecure nor tenure, nor should a director be paid for time and attendance, nor should a board director be a historian explaining the status quo or an archivist. In the campaign forum that I encourage you all to participate in, all new board candidates agree wholeheartedly that there should be term limits. One candidate, having served 3 terms already, is making the argument to allow him to serve again after a cooling off period. Another candidate, who has been on the board 3 terms already, has been silent wisely. In 2015-2016, the board recognized that limiting new board members to 3 terms was a good practice, but then, acting in self-interest, it excluded themselves from that stipulation. That principle is sound, the exception not so much. The CIRA, in an email of June 30th, agreed that this motion has validity. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Jill Kowalczyk, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
The members voted to change the bylaws with term limits in 2016. The membership had a robust discussion about this decision at that time. When this change was made, incumbent directors were not provided with extra rights of unlimited terms. The bylaws simply provided that prior service for incumbent directors would not count towards the 9-year total. Most board members have chosen not to re-enlist after this 9-year term. Since the founding of CIRA, only 2 directors have left the board and been re-elected at a later date, Dr. Michael Geist and Mr. Paul Anderson. And in both cases, these individuals were re-elected on the member slate. I felt fortunate that I had the pleasure of serving with a number of veteran members when I joined the board. Over the last 4 years, I have seen the value in having directors that spanned a wide range of terms. Combining this with the perspectives of directors who are new and some with a few years' experience enabled rich conversations and resulted in the best decisions and governance for the organization. At present, CIRA's average term for board members is 4.5 years. Depending on the outcome of the upcoming election, this average could drop below 2.5 years. I am personally a strong believer in new perspectives, but with balance of veteran directors and directors with a few years' experience is absolutely critical to an effective board. This motion would have the effect of limiting members' ability to determine who they feel most appropriate to govern the organization. The motion would take away the rights of members to vote for their preferred candidate, or artificially force the resignation of a director who has the support of membership. We recommend you vote against this motion.
Thank you. Now to questions. Again, 1 question per member. Questions must be short, only related to this motion and typed. Do any members have any specific questions with respect to this motion for the CIRA board and or for Mr. Baraskow?
We are currently
Baraskow,
waiting.
excuse me, Baraskow. Baraskow.
There is 1 question.
Alex, thank you. Please.
Sorry. The first question is, this motion seems significantly directed by Alex Baraskow against Andrew Escobar. What were the results of that election? How many votes did Andrew Escobar receive? How many votes did Alex Baraskow receive?
Jill, please.
Thank you. I asked to confer with my colleagues to get the correct answer. Thank you for your patience while we dug up the answer. On the 2020 member slate, Andrew and Alex both ran. Andrew won with 318 votes, and Alex had 183 votes. Thank you.
The following question is for Mr. Baraskow. Why do you believe a cooling off period is not appropriate? Should instead the period just be increased?
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think I go back to the opening comment, and that is that everybody agrees, who knows anything about board governance, that there should be term limits. It's not a let's parse it into kind of months or whatever. Normally they're set as 2 terms, sometimes 3 terms, and not provide a lot of wiggle room about cooling off periods, what does it mean, and what have you. So some people, for example, will argue that, oh, okay, you need a cooling off period, but you're still coming back with the same information that you had before, and what you're just doing is just reworking the status quo that was there. The idea being always, and everybody preaches this from the Institute of Corporate Directors to anybody who does participate in board governance, 100% of people agree that there should be limits with no exceptions. So extending the cooling off period, what does it solve? There are over 15,000 members, CIRA members, that CIRA can draw on, and I'm not sure how many 170,000 not-for-profit corporations that have all boards of directors to draw on. Surely there should be some capable folks to try and mix it up, have diversity of experience, perspective, and not just stick with the status quo while people have, redo their friendships and all the other stuff. You need independence to provide good oversight. Thank you.
There is another question. What is the average duration of board membership?
Jill, please.
The average duration for the current board is 4.5 years. We are coming up into a new election, and that average will change. The new average will be somewhere between 2.5 years and 3.5 years, depending upon the results of the election. Thank you.
Mr. Escobar is the youngest member of the board and one of the few visibly underrepresented, yet shares similar qualifications as Mr. Barrasco. I was shocked by Mr. Barrasco's foreign comments. Why do you seek to remove him but claim to support diversity?
Mr. Barrasco? Barrasco,
Yes.
Excuse me?
Yes, just Alex is fine, Helen. Why don't we just do first name and, just be at peace. We used to do that professionally. We should be able to do that now. So to start the clock, I'm not sure I understand the question. I'm not here to disparage Andrew Escobar or compare my qualifications to his whatsoever. So I'm not sure what, you can look at my resume. I've done a dozen boards, but I'm not here running for an election. So I'm not sure what the point is. If this motion goes through, because it is, and it should, because it's good governance, perhaps he could stay on just because he was selected before, because it would throw the board possibly in disarray if he, like Ryan Black, resigned immediately. I have no particular truck with him staying on and finishing out his term if he so finishes. The point being is that Jill, who's a wonderful person, did not address the point about the 4.5 years. Right now, there will be 9 board members who will provide continuity to the board. Some may go on, some may go off for whatever reasons, whether they don't like the work, they don't like the pay, they don't like the shenanigans. Who knows why people resign? But the point being is 9 people will already provide continuity, and this isn't a question whatsoever about Andrew Escobar versus Alex Barrasco. If you ever want to get a comparison, drop me a line, and I'm happy to respond professionally but personally, not in a online forum with 150 people online at an AGM. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Madam
Other questions,
Chair?
please? Yes.
Madam Chair, we have
Brigitte.
reached our time limit for the question period.
Thank you, Brigitte. Let's now proceed with comments from members. And you know the drill for this. You must call 1-888-886-7786. Please keep your comments short and only related to this motion. We have 7 minutes allocated to comments. Operator, I wait to hear from you if there are any members online with comments
Not
on
at
this
this
motion.
time, Madam.
Let us wait a little bit. While we're waiting, Alex, sorry, I did cut you off, I think, or tried to cut you off at a comment or a response, because apparently the clock I see is not the clock you see. So there's a delay, and I didn't realize that, so sorry. We about 1 minute into waiting for a comment online.
No one at this time, but somebody might be dialing. Stand by.
Thank you. Operator, any sense of, you see if someone is dialing?
Yes, Madam Chair, we do have someone online.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Mike Dumler, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm currently a chair of a society. I've been on the National Board of the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, served as a staff advisor to constitution committees. And it is common for term limits to be written in a way that allows for a break. Normally, the bylaw language would say that no more than 3 consecutive terms can be served. And in my experience, that's quite common, as well as there are still a number of nonprofit societies who don't have term limits at all, believing that members should have the democratic right to decide who's on the board. I personally support the limit of consecutive terms, but believe that there can be great benefit to the organization to have someone come back after having served 2 terms and then serving 2 more terms. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. Others? Comments?
Not at this time.
Just pause a short minute longer, and if not, we'll move on to the vote. I think that probably concludes the comment period. Operator, just checking. Anyone dialing in?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Let's proceed to voting on the motion as set out on the screen. You'll see the motion appear on your screen. Please vote now.
There were 26 yeses, 92 noes, and 4 abstentions. The no outweigh the yeses.
The motion is not carried. Before we proceed to the next motion, Brigitte, how many members are present, please?
One moment, please. There are 153 members present.
Thank you. This motion calls for the board to consider adding the following language to section 3.05 of CIRA's bylaw relating to the returning officer. You would add 3.05D. The returning officer should be allowed to oversee the election process and system a maximum of 5 board elections. You'd add E. The returning officer must file a report that must be reviewed by the board and thereafter accepted once it has done its due diligence. And F, the returning officer report must be published on the CIRA website along with all associated costs. The member submitting the proposal is deemed to have moved the motion. Will a member please second the motion?
Brett Delmage is recorded as having seconded the motion.
Thank you, Brigitte. Alex, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
So I tried to point out as a point of order, pressing my button twice. I'm not sure on the previous proposal I was given my 1-minute summation, but I just want to point that out. So I will start on the next proposal, proposal number 4. The returning officer, a contractor, is critical to the success of the election process. He or she must be independent of management and the board as she serves the members to ensure a fair and just election. The last returning officer started in 2012 and did so for 8 consecutive elections. The returning officer is a contractor. Rotating contractors is a good management practice. Auditors of financial affairs, as we know, are routinely rotated to provide a fresh set of eyes and ensure independence from management. This is especially important for public interest corporations, and in some jurisdictions, rotation is mandatory every 5 years. The cost of the contract given for that is not known to members either. CIRA agreed to this motion in its email of June 30th. This needs to be fixed. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, and my apology about failing to read my script and give you the 1-minute closing. Director Ryan Black, who is the chair of our governance committee, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
Thanks very much, and I hope you can hear me. Alex, you're not the only one who Helen's got her last name wrong. She just called me Ryan Brack, so there we go. I'm here to speak about the board's position about the member proposal relating to the returning officer. We understand the need for an independent and fresh returning officer to oversee elections. We note that by policy and practice, CIRA already implements or considers in substance the proposed measures. As a lawyer and chair of our governance committee, I'd first like to speak generally about bylaws, which are to set out the broad rules for governing and operating an organization. CIRA's bylaw is prepared with the assistance of expert external legal counsel based on governance best practices and was approved by our members. We've received external advice and verification that our bylaws are reasonable and robust while giving flexibility to address circumstances in the collective judgment of the board. It's my view that the proposed bylaw is too prescriptive and is unnecessary, does not add true value and transparency. Members should know that the returning officer prepares a report each year and provides it to the board. This year we have a new returning officer, Thomas Cranes. We've included in Mr. Cranes' contract starting in 2021. He will publish the returning officers publicly on the CIRA's website. Mr. Crane's contract runs up to 5 years at CIRA's annual option. After that, CIRA will tender the engagement. However, the member's proposal would attempt to limit our options because we would not have the ability to reselect Mr. Crane should that be in the best decision at the time. When it comes to publishing the returning officer's costs, the board does not consider it in CIRA's best interest. It would limit our negotiating abilities, impact those willing to work with us in the future, and require a level of detail that's frankly too far in the weeds. In sum, this proposal is unnecessary, ill-advised as a change to the bylaws, and does not represent any best practice. Members should be assured that CIRA has already adopted most of its measures, and those that it hasn't, it takes into account in its policies. As such, in CIRA's best interest, the board recommends that you vote against it.
Thank you. Now to questions. Same rules as last time, short, relevant typed questions. And we have 7 minutes for questions and answers for this motion. Do members have any questions with respect to this motion?
We currently have no questions, so we'll just be waiting. Thank you. There are still no questions.
Still no questions?
Yes, there is no questions at the moment.
All right, I'm going to proceed with comments from members. Again, please call the number on your screen if you have a comment. Please keep comments short. We have 7 minutes available. Operator, please let us know if there are members online with specific comments about this motion.
Not at this time.
Thank you. I don't think there are any comments. So Alex, excuse me, do you have a final comment for 1 minute?
Yeah, so thank you, Helen, for that. I'm a little bit puzzled, I must say, because on one hand, Ryan Black, not Brack, has basically admitted that they've accepted the recommendation, but essentially they want some wiggle room. The reason the motion should be passed is that all the points are very valid, and that should be baked into the bylaws so that the next board can't decide that, no, we don't have to do that, or if veteran board members want to go back to the old ways of doing it rather than following good governance practices. So my recommendation is we all agree that this is all good. Just pass the motion so that it is baked in into the bylaws. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the comment period. We'll now proceed to voting on the motion as set out on the screen. You will see the motion appear on your screen. Click on your selection, submit and confirm. Please vote now.
There were 15 yes votes, 92 no votes, and 8 abstentions. The noes outweigh the yeses.
The motion is not carried. We're going to take a short break and be back in 10 minutes. And when we return, we will address the remaining member motions. And I'd remind members who are interested in these member motions to stay online. Again, for business to be duly conducted at this meeting, we need a quorum of at least 100 members. Thank you. Welcome back. Let's start with a quorum count. Brigitte, how many members are present?
There are 133 members present.
Thank you, Brigitte. We will now proceed to the following motion. Alex, this is number 6 for you, which calls for the board to consider adding the following language to section 3.11 of CIRA's bylaw relating to director expenses. So there would be added 3.11C, all directors' individual remuneration as well as individual expenses are to be reported in the annual financial statements. We'd add a D, all consultants and observers hired by and for the board must be named and have their total expenses reported in the annual financial statements. The member submitting the proposal is deemed to have moved the motion. Will a member please second the motion by clicking on the I second button on their screen?
Patrick Audley is recorded as having seconded this motion.
Thank you, Brigitte. Alex, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
Great, thank you. First of all, I think I should point out that CIRA seems confused as to whether the board consists of 12 or 15 directors. So depending on the circumstances, they use either number. To get around the issue of the bylaws, essentially the bylaws allow observers who are not directors, as they are not accountable to members or elected by members but act like directors. In fact, they are consultants to the board, which is fine as long as the board can hire consultants to help them out to make informed decisions. The norm now for public institutions is to be open and transparent, and this has been going on for well over 20 years. Executives of such institutions routinely publish their calendars and expense statements publicly. This is not interference at any level. It is simply being open and transparent to show board expenses as the board is accountable to its members. For example, board expenses have hovered around $250,000 for salaries, but expenses are but another $250,000. The chair also has a special fund that has no oversight. It could be small or it could be used to dispense favors. Frankly, I don't know, but members should know. You might recall, Helen, I asked you years ago when you were chair and I was just a member of the board, whether the board was delivering its $500,000 worth of value to CIRA and its two members. And I'll let you answer that, what your answer was at the time. So I think this should be fixed, that all directors' remuneration and expenses should be published, as well as all consultants, because there are people who work for the board who are consultants and not directors as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Colleen Arnold, Chair of our Compensation Committee. You have the floor for 2 minutes. I think you're muted. Colleen, please unmute. We'll just wait a minute here for Colleen to come back.
I'm back.
Colleen, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Helen.
Please proceed.
This member proposal requests that CIRA's bylaws be changed to state that all payments to board of directors, consultants, and observers hired by the board be published in its annual financial statements. CIRA's Independent Governance Council has advised us that the operational matters like this do not belong in an organization's bylaws. Regarding payments to directors, CIRA is transparent about its board of directors' compensation. Last year, we posted individual director meeting attendance at board and committee meetings and the amount of reimbursement per meeting. This year, we expanded this to include all payments made to individual board members, including reimbursement of expenses, training, and travel costs. This information has been available on the CIRA website. Regarding payments to consultants and observers, it is standard industry practice not to disclose the contents of business contracts. Also, the contracts of consultants often include confidentiality clauses, prohibiting the disclosure of the terms of the engagement. Including such a clause in CIRA's bylaws would violate the terms of these contracts, limit the availability to hire consultants, and therefore not be in the best interest of CIRA. In summary, we recommend that you vote against this motion. CIRA has already adopted most of the provisions of the proposal, and it would violate contracts and tie the hands of management. Thank you.
Thank you. Now to questions. Again, one question per member to allow time for other members to participate. Please keep your typed questions short to 240 characters, and your question, of course, must be related to this motion. Brigitte, please tell us when we reach our 7-minute time limit. So members, if you have specific questions with respect to the motion, please also indicate if you want the CIRA board and or Alex to respond.
There are currently no questions at the moment. Thank you.
Give it a little time. Still no questions?
Still no question, Madam Chair.
And has it been a minute or two? Just allowing enough time for people to type?
We are just
We're coming up on a minute.
I'll give it a little more time then.
There is one question. It's for Mr. Verosco. Can you provide an example of another company that discloses the cost of consultants and observers?
So am I on?
Yes.
Okay. The best example is, and Helen should be able to confirm this, having worked at Treasury Board for many years, is the Government of Canada, for example, does publish all contracts over $25,000 as a measure of being open and transparent. I haven't gone through the research to find out what other companies do this or not. My concern, of course, is that when I just found out today that expenses are now published as well. So I'm glad that CIRA is moving to making some moves to, publish some of these things, some of these expenses as well. Thank you.
There is another question. It was stated that CIRA already publishes the salary and expense claims of all board members. Is this total or broken down per board member?
Thank you
Colleen,
for your
please.
question.
Go ahead, Colleen.
Thank you for your question. It is broken down on the CIRA website by individual board member. Thank you.
There are currently no other questions.
We're 3 minutes in, and if I could just say personally, I do not have a slush fund, and I don't recall the government ever publishing detail by detail all of their contracts and the amounts. The 25,000 I think Alex was referring to was when one would have to put a contract out for bidding. However, if there are any comments from members, you know the drill. You have to call 1-888-886-7786. Please keep your comments short related to this motion and have your member ID ready. And Brigitte, please tell us when we reach our 7-minute time limit.
Madam Chair, there are no comments at the moment.
Okay, let's just pause for a little bit longer. Operator, still no evidence of comments?
Not at this time.
Then I'm going to suggest that we ask Alex if he has a final comment for 1 minute, please.
So just being informed right now that all these expenses were in fact published, we certainly would have saved a lot of time had this been known ahead of time and circulated to members. I'm not sure when this information was made available as well when it was put on the website, but this was not told to members. But the information is there now, so good, and good to see that CIRA is in fact adhering to practices of showing expenses and the like. My point of why this should be voted yes is that this is a good practice, and recognizing that CIRA is doing it now without having told members directly, it should be baked into the process so that it stays there and somebody doesn't decide once this meeting is over that we no longer have to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the comment period. We'll now proceed to voting on the motion as set out on the screen. You will see the motion appear on your screen. Simply click on your selection, submit, and confirm. Please vote now.
There are 15 yes votes, 80 no votes, and 8 abstentions. The noes outweigh the yeses.
The motion is not carried. We will now proceed to the next motion, but first, Brigitte, can you see if we have quorum?
Of course, 1 minute, please. There are 134 members present.
Thank you. This motion calls for the board to consider adding the following language to Section 16 of CIRA's bylaw and includes provisions relating to the CIRA domain name dispute resolution process. It would be an insertion after Section 15 of 1601 The CIRA dispute resolution process must be fair and independent of management, the board, and registrars. 16.02, firms selected to administer the process should be registered federally and publicly. Management, shareholders, and board directors of such firms must be disclosed on the CIRA website. 16.03, firms for managing the CIRA dispute resolution process must be tendered every 5 years. The proposing member is deemed to have moved the motion. Will a member please second the motion?
Patrick Audley is recorded as having seconded the motion.
Thank you, Brigitte. Alex, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
Great.
Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Helen. The CRDP process is a quasi-decision process administered by a private company in one case and a not-for-profit in another. The premise is that in the absence of openness and transparency, that we should trust CIRA management to never act in anyone's self-interest. Each firm administers the process, selecting jurists and the like. How comfortable would you be knowing that the selection and scheduling of any judicial system is done for profit and by a contractor? Has anyone heard the saying, the good lawyer knows the law, but a better one knows the judge? Whether true or not, no respectable judicial system operates that way. One firm is privately held and therefore assumed to be for profit. The board of that firm is unknown and not registered federally, even though it has federal jurisdiction and mandate. Does CIRA know if it is operated by a registrar? How many domains does that registrar own? The CRD process must be free of conflict, real and perceived, regardless of how much money changes hands. Anyone involved in the public space knows that contractors must be rotated routinely. Firms who administer the CIRA dispute resolution process must be registered federally and have their directors and shareholders disclosed prominently on the CIRA website to ensure independence and transparency with no real or perceived bias. We need to fix what's there now. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Ryan Black, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
Remember to hit unmute in the pandemic. Hi, everyone. I'm back to present the board's position on the member's proposal relating to CIRA's domain dispute resolution process, which we'll call the CDRP. I do have prepared statements here and could have a number of direct responses to Alex, but will do my best to stick to my prepared ones. The board takes seriously its obligation to put the interests of CIRA first. That may, of course, include at some point retendering the firms managing the CDRP. There's no magic to 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, or immediately if the need so arose. We do not support the idea of having our bylaws prescribe an exact time period when it's in the best interests of CIRA to do so. The two firms Alex mentioned currently manage the CDRP are small Canadian companies that simply administer the proceedings. They do not render the decisions. Rather, the decisions are adjudicated by independent third-party panelists, typically intellectual property lawyers. The two service providers are also not paid by CIRA. Rather, they're paid by the complainants who launched the proceedings. Their fees, about $1,000 per case, are published on their websites. There's no conflict with the company serving as a registrar, also serving as a dispute resolution provider, since they're completely different lines of business, and the panelist, not the provider, is the person rendering the decision. As part of being a panelist must complete a conflict of interest check and sign a statement of acceptance and declaration of impartiality and independence. Decisions are published, and those decisions include the process of establishing the independence and impartiality of the panelist. If you've ever read one of the decisions, you'll see that at the beginning. The CIRA website is also transparent as to how many CDRP cases there are each year. In 2020, 15 for one of them, 24 for the other. This is typical of how many we see each year. In some, the whole process is already open and transparent with the costs of the CDRP providers spelled out. The measures set out in this proposal are not necessary. It would not be appropriate to include them in the bylaw. None of what's being proposed in the mention is in the best interest of CIRA, and we recommend that you vote against the motion and 000.
Now to questions from members. We've allocated again a total of 7 minutes for the question period. Are there any specific questions with respect to this motion? Please again indicate if you want the CIRA board or Alex to respond.
There is one question for Mr. Borowsko. Please substantiate your first supporting statement for proposal and explain how it connects to this proposal. Some registrars may own more than 1,000 .ca domain names for resale and profit.
So can I ask that question? Does anybody other than that one or many registrars of 100 know who owns those domain names? So, for example, somebody owns 10,000 domain names. Do you know who that is? I don't. CIRA does. Do you have confidence in the impartiality of selecting the lawyers, administering the process of somebody who may own 10,000 domain names or not, or could be 1,000, or maybe not at all? Frankly, I don't know, but we need to know as members that there is transparency and that there is no conflict whatsoever in that entire process. Right now, we don't even know one firm who the board is, who owns it. None of that is visible. I've tried to find out, but couldn't whatsoever. To me, that's not good governance, to have somebody there and you don't know who owns them, what their accountability is, what their responsibility is, etc. This is doesn't pass the smell test. Thank you.
There is another question. If the problem is people owning domains, why is this not targeted at the registrant as opposed to the registrar community?
Alex, my impression would be that that question would be for you.
Well, I'm, you know, the best move always in doubles tennis is when the ball doesn't come, you can't reach the tennis ball, you always look at your partner and say, yours. So I appreciate that, Ryan, but I don't think I understand the question. Could you repeat it and I'll try?
Yes, the question is, if the problem is people owning domains, why is this not targeted at the registrant as opposed to the registrar community?
So I think the way the proposal, the way I read it, is that registrars should not own the judicial process or be part of the judicial process in any way, whether it's to administer it, whether it's to bring coffee, or in any way selecting who the jurists are or the lawyers. There should be really more than arm's length, more than a postal code length between a registrar, management, the board, and the dispute resolution process, if it is to have any level of integrity. Does that answer the question?
We will move to the next question. Again, it's a question for yourself. Since the CDRP process is between parties unrelated to CIRA directly, i.e. between a domain holder and a trademark holder, why do you believe this language is appropriate to be in the CIRA bylaws?
So, very good point, and you have to kind of drill down to what level of confidence would you have if you're a registrant and you are now disputing who owns that domain name if the person who is selecting the jurist, administering the entire process, owns and I'm going to pick a hypothetical number, 10,000 domain names. Would you feel confident that it was fair and just, that the process was administered fairly and justly? I don't think I would.
There's a third question again for yourself, Mr. Barrasko. Why would it be necessary for a company to be federally registered rather than provincially in order to administer this process?
So the federal law, and of the 170,000 companies that are not-for-profit, essentially federal law is a little tougher and a little bit more transparent. So, for example, federal law, all directors must be listed on the board. So the 12 CIRA board members must be listed on the website, and you can find out who they are so that you can hold them to account. Provincial jurisdiction across all provinces and territories varies differently. There's varying standards, and because the CRDP process is across the country, it has a national mandate, I think they should be federally regulated, or at least listed, so that you have confidence that the firm is truly independent, objective, all the way through. So that's the reason for the federal incorporation.
There are no more questions.
Thank you. Let us now proceed with comments from members. And you can comment by calling 1-888-886-7786. You'll be limited to 1 minute. And Brigitte will tell us if we've reached when we reach our 7-minute time limit. So I know there won't be instantly, but operator, please let us know if there are members on the line with comments on this motion.
Madam Chair, not at this time.
Let's wait a moment. Am I thinking we're about a minute in without any comments?
That's correct.
Madam Chair, no comments.
A lot of these, there are few variables that affect the cost, which we can discuss.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking that at this time there are probably no comments, that we've given this enough time to allow people to call in.
Madam Chair,
Brigitte,
there are no
sounds good?
comments.
No comments. Okay. Alex, do you have a final comment for 1 minute?
Is, first of all, the firms are selected by CIRA, and some of them have been around for quite a long time without knowing what their term limits are. They could be owned by a registrar who may own a hockey sock full of domain names or not, but nobody knows. Nobody knows whether the firms are held offshore. For example, what the influence is. To make a little joke, is Donald Trump owns any of the firms, even though he's not a Canadian citizen. So part of what I'm trying to do with this motion, because the CRDP process is so critical, is to make it more open and transparent, have the firms be known, declared who their shareholders are, because shareholders or members influence the company and its direction. So I ask that this motion be passed. Thank you.
That concludes the comment period, and we'll now proceed to voting on the motion. You will see the motion, or when you see the motion on your screen, please click on your selection, submit, and confirm. Please vote now.
There are 11 yes votes, 87 no votes, and 4 abstentions. The noes outweigh the yeses.
The motion is not carried. We will now proceed to the second last motion from the member proposal. But before we do, let's just check quorum. Brigitte?
One moment, please. There are 131 members present.
Thank you. This motion calls for the board to consider adding the following language to CIRA's bylaw. You would add section 2.06. As a not-for-profit corporation, CIRA must manage the .ca domain space as a key public resource on behalf of Canadians. CIRA must manage CIRA's activities in an open and transparent manner that ensures wide public access to all relevant information following fair and sound business practices. The proposing member is deemed to have moved the motion. Will a member please second the motion by clicking on the I second button on your screen?
Jim Dixon is recorded as having seconded the motion.
Thank you, Brigitte. Alex, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
Good, thank you. This proposal listed as number 1 is probably the most important of the list as it anchors CIRA. CIRA seems to be confused as this proposal for a bylaw change does not propose changing the purpose of CIRA, but specifically how that purpose is to be done. So not the what, but the how. CIRA is a not-for-profit company operating in a highly competitive tech world. No executive has invested their own money or those of other investors in the prospect of financial gain for its shareholders. In fact, the CEO, I don't think, is even a CIRA member. All corporations are commercial. For-profit companies have a profit motive, not-for-profit have a societal one. Not-for-profit corporations must work, therefore, in public interest. CIRA has an exclusive license given it by the federal government. CIRA did not invent .ca. It operates under the grace and pleasure of Canada. If CIRA is to have that exclusive license, it must also work in the public interest and must be seen as working in the public interest. To do that, it must be open and transparent. I don't believe it has been. That begs the question, why not? What is CIRA hiding from the members and the public? I therefore urge all members to vote for this very important principle of openness, transparency, and working on behalf of Canadians. Thank you.
Director Don Bowman, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Helen. So on my first day of director school with CIRA, I learned about this magical thing called the Binder Letter, and it sets out the long-term strategic direction for CIRA. Previously, .ca had been administered by a school, and we were looking for a way to sort of harmonize public and private. Where would we go? It's very difficult, particularly with fast evolving things like internet, and particularly in that year, to see where they're going to be in a year, let alone a decade. I think that the letter set forth a very good agenda. And on the first day, when I learned of that, I was like, okay, this is actually pretty good. It's not prescriptive, it's generic. It talks about outcomes rather than exactly how. Bylaws, if we think of them by their very nature, are prescriptive. No parking on the street between 6 and 8 p.m. except on the weekend. Whereas your purposes are what you're trying to achieve. I think that these two are confounded here. The purposes of the corporation, which were recently updated, encompass this Binder Letter, and they trump the bylaws to act as a registry, to provide professional services, and to do such things in a way that are conducive to internet in Canada. Bylaws are very prescriptive. I don't think we should be changing them on a whim here. The Binder Letter was never designed to be a prescriptive legal document. It is not an act of Parliament. It is a suggestion for an outcome to be handled in a multi-stakeholder fashion, where the Government of Canada is one of the stakeholders. Industry in Canada is one, the registrars are one, etc. We recommend you vote against this prescriptive change to the bylaw, which is already encompassed in the purposes. It achieves no valid purpose. Thank you very much. Take questions.
Thank you. We are moving to questions. One per member, short, concise, only related to this motion. Brigitte, please tell us when we reach the 7-minute time limit or there are no questions coming in. Please, if members have specific questions, please share them and indicate if you want the CIRA board and or Alex to respond.
There are currently no questions. Madam Chair? There are still no questions after a minute.
Another 30 seconds, and then we'll proceed with comments. Brigitte, I think we're probably a minute and a half in. Is that right?
That's
no
correct.
questions? All right, thank you. Let's now proceed with comments from members. And again, you remember this is where you call the 188 number. Please make sure to have your member ID ready for authentication, and we have 7 minutes maximum allowed for this period. Operator, please let us know if we get members on the line.
And Madam Chair, at this time, we have no comments.
Can you remind me how long we have been waiting for comments? Brigitte?
We're just coming up on a minute.
Madam Chair, there are still no comments.
I'm going to assume that there are no comments, but I'm going to ask Alex if you have a final comment for 1 minute.
I don't want members to be fooled. The issue of the multi-stakeholder term that Don keeps on using is completely irrelevant to this discussion. The fact is very straightforward. 90% of revenue comes from operating the .ca domain name. According to calculations, after 14 years, 6 products account for less than 3 million of revenue. And the question that Don should ask himself is, how long would he have lasted on any board that he's been in as a successful entrepreneur after 14 years to get only 3 million in revenue? So the purpose of CIRA is critical to this whole discussion. I don't want the board to be, the members to be fooled. They would want you to believe that CIRA should be, can work in secrecy and be opaque in their practices and their numbers. Don't be fooled. Thank you.
That concludes the comment period. We'll now proceed to voting on the motion. Please simply click on your selection, submit and confirm. Please vote now.
There are 17 yes votes, 71 no votes, and 5 abstentions. The noes outweigh the yeses.
The motion is not carried. Members, we will now proceed to the final motion from the proposal. And before we do, Brigitte, how many members are present?
One moment, please. There are 128 members present.
Thank you. This last motion calls for the board to consider deleting the current section 3.02 of CIRA's bylaw relating to CIRA's board advisors and adding in the following language. So delete section 3.02 and add a new 3.02. The CIRA board may engage advisors and consultants as they see fit. Such expenses, along with accountability, should be noted and reported to members. The submitter is deemed to have moved the motion. Will a member please second the motion?
Patrick Audley is recorded as having seconded the motion.
Thank you, Brigitte. Alex, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
Great, thank you. CIRA would have you believe that there are 3 non-voting directors on this CIRA board. It is confused as to whether there are 12 or 15 directors. I want to clear that up. That is total nonsense and needs to be labeled as such. According to the Canada Not-for-Profit Act, which CIRA is subject to, there is no such thing as a non-voting director. CIRA is wrong in law and should know that and not spread false statements. They should know better, and the 2 lawyers who are on this call should know that as well. It is pure hubris to suggest it is also likely that the Canada Not-for-Profit Corporation Act will be amended to reintroduce the concept of ex officio directors as sent out in the CIRA response. They also spread misinformation and disinformation about the ex officio concept. While it may be true that they have written a submission to ISED, the facts are there is no indication whatsoever that Parliament has completed, having Parliament completed its 10-year mandatory review will amend the Canada Not-for-Profit Act. For further clarification, I wrote to the executive head of Corporations Canada, who also confirmed that no changes are contemplated to the Act at all for the foreseeable future. So shame on CIRA for trying to suggest that changes are going to be made, and shame on CIRA also to suggest that there's such a thing as a non-voting director. So while the CIRA CEO may want to pose as a director, he is not. CIRA may, and let me know if you would like a copy of any of that email correspondence or a copy of the Act which supports my arguments. Thank you.
Director Colleen Arnold, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Helen. CIRA's governance structure is comprised of 12 elected and 3 non-voting board advisors. The 3 board advisors receive no compensation other than that which they receive from their employer. The effect of approving this member proposal would be to remove the 3 non-voting board advisors. These advisors include John Demko, the founding member of CIRA, whose foresight established the structure and organization of the .ca domain, Charles Noir, Senior Director of the Government of Canada, Department of Innovation, Science and Economic Development. The mandate of this department is to enhance Canada's innovative performance, increase Canada's share of global trade, and to build a fair, efficient, and competitive marketplace. And last, but certainly not least, Byron Holland, the CEO and president of CIRA. Byron is an expert in internet governance, whose leadership has evolved CIRA from a single service industry into a globally recognized multi-product, not-for-profit with over 3 million domain names under management. Losing the expertise, the experience, and industry insights of these three board advisors would be a great loss to CIRA and to its members. For these reasons, I ask that you vote against this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any members have specific questions with respect to the motion? And again, if you could indicate whether it's CIRA and or Alex to respond, that would be very helpful. Please keep your typed questions short and concise. And Brigitte, you will let us know when we reach the 7-minute time limit. Please proceed with from questions from members.
There are currently no questions, Madam Chair.
We'll give it a moment. I think we've had one elapsed minute. We'll just give it another 30 seconds. That's a minute and a half. I'm presuming we can now proceed with comments from members. And you know the drill. You have to call the 1-888 number. Short, concise comments only related to this motion. Operator, are there any members on the line with specific comments about this motion?
Madam Chair, at this time, there are no comments.
Good. We'll wait another 90 seconds and see if that changes. We're 1 minute in. We'll give it another 30 seconds. And then we will ask Alex if he has a final comment.
Madam Chair, there are still no comments.
Thank you. Alex, do you have a final comment for 1 minute?
Yes, I do, Helen. I know I'm going to surprise you by saying I do. The point of this proposal is to define who is a director, because only directors are accountable to members. This is not who is an observer. The board can invite observers, the CEO, John Demko, and anybody else at any time to sit on the board. The point also is that directors must be registered, must be visible at all times. The nonsense that there are ex officio members and that the laws are going to be changed imminently because CIRA hopes that it will be one day is total nonsense. So that point should be totally rejected. The point should be is that observers can be there and that the directors should be registered in law and known who they are to members. The board is 12, not 15. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the comment period. We'll now proceed to voting on the motion. And you will find on your screen, we hope, that you can simply click, submit, and confirm, and have your vote registered. So please vote now.
There are 13 yes votes, 78 no votes, and 7 abstentions. The no votes outweigh the yes votes.
The motion is not carried. It is now time to close the official formal portion of this meeting. A motion to conclude the meeting is now in order. May I please have a motion to conclude the meeting by clicking on the I move button on your screen by a member.
Jill Kowalchuk moved.
Thank you, Brigitte. Will a member please second the motion by clicking on the I second button on your screen?
Jim Dixon is recorded as having seconded the motion.
Thank you, Brigitte. We will now proceed with the vote to close the meeting. You will see the motion appear on your screen. Simply click on your selection, submit, and confirm, and your vote will be registered. Please vote now.
There were 83 yes votes, 6 no votes, and 3 abstentions. The yes outweigh the noes.
The motion is carried. The 2021 CIRA AGM is now concluded. Thank you, everyone. There have been some great conversations today and insightful learnings from our industry experts on doing business in a post-pandemic world through the power of the internet. And before we go, I'd like to encourage all CIRA members to vote in CIRA's upcoming election. Members are able to vote from today until September 30th. So remember to vote and spread the word through your networks. The more CIRA members we have engaged in this process, the better. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us today. As a CIRA member, you're helping us build a trusted internet for Canadians. And thank you everyone behind the scenes who have made this online event possible again. Thank you and goodbye.